everyone, and welcome back to this channel, OHL in 20. This is where we break down all 20 OHL teams, stats, predictions, and maybe there's even trades involved. But we're glad you're here. In this video, we're going to talk about future OHL city expansion options. Now, we've already seen that the Hamilton Bulldogs have moved to Brantford, Ontario. The Mississauga Steelheads just relocated to Brampton for the second time after, well, the battalion relocated from Brampton to North Bay. So this is going to be interesting to see hockey back in Brampton. And won't that be interesting when the Steelheads and the battalion go head to head in Brampton, two franchises that have history in Brampton, Ontario. But what are some of the future cities going to look like in the future of the OHL? Could we see more relocations or could we possibly see expansions into the OHL? We just had a new commissioner added to the Ontario Hockey League. And well, it's going to be interesting to see if there's some potential options for expansion. Now, I just want to clarify something here. The Brantford Bulldogs are playing out of the Civic Center in Brantford, Ontario, but they're more in the Midwest of Ontario, and they play out of the East Division. Now, this all makes sense because the Bulldogs used to play in Belleville, Ontario, before they got relocated to Hamilton. There was probably going to be some speculation that the Bulldogs would eventually go back to Belleville at some point, but it looks like in the future, the Bulldogs may be staying in Brantford permanently. Now, we could see the Bulldogs staying permanently in Brantford after the First Ontario Center in Hamilton undergoing renovations. And considering what's all been going on with the city of Hamilton and are they able to hold an OHL franchise, it looks like the city of Hamilton is looking to expand on hockey, but they're going to look at AHL. There was talks of potentially adding an NHL team into Hamilton, but again, you have the Leafs in Toronto and you have the Sabres in Buffalo. Does it really make sense to have the capacity for an NHL franchise in Hamilton for the National Hockey League? Or do they go back to the OHL or do they look at other options? But it looks like they're going to be staying more in the AHL era for future opportunities. Now let's get into some of the OHL cities that could hold an OHL market in the future. There's been a lot of talks, for Thunder Bay, Ontario, Newmarket, Ontario. Now, Newmarket used to have a team before they relocated to Sarnia. That team has since found success in the city and the community of Sarnia, Ontario. Could we see hockey back in Newmarket? Potentially. The only option is Newmarket. They might have to build a new arena after the Newmarket Royals left to go to Sarnia. There are talks about adding a team in Burlington. Burlington is apparently currently building a new facility to hold an OHL franchise. It's right next to the Burlington GO train station, which would be very accessible for fans to commute to and from the game, and as obviously hold other events there as well. However, Burlington is right on the border of the city of Hamilton. And obviously, we know that Hamilton could not hold an OHL franchise for very long. The reasons speculate around that, obviously the First Ontario Center was undergoing renovations. There were other rumors that they were demolishing the arena. And then there was also true accusation rumors that, which actually seem very real at this moment, that the Brantford Bulldogs are there to stay in Brantford. So if Hamilton gets an AHL team, do you add one in Burlington? I mean, you're kind of a good distance away in between Brantford and like cities like Kitchener and Guelph, as well as Brampton now. So could we see a team in Burlington? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends if Burlington can live up to this facility that they're apparently building near the Burlington GO transit station. The other option that there could be to add another team in, or going back to York Region, instead of adding a team in Newmarket, what about Vaughan? Vaughan is very well known for Canada's Wonderland. You get a lot of visitors to that place every single season. I was just actually there a couple days ago. I couldn't believe the amount of lineups for every single ride. I mean, people come from all over the world, the country. People even just fly in to Ontario just to go to the park. And I was honestly blown away by the amount of people that actually can go to this park every year. But would they be able to actually hold an OHL franchise? Well, you look at the CNE, the Argos and the Toronto Argonauts and the Saskatchewan Roughriders of the CFL, they just had their CNE game last night. And, you had the CNE right outside, and then you go into a football game. So if you have Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan, could you hold an OHL market? Well, again, it all comes back to, a city like Newmarket or Burlington. Can you build a 5,000 or more seat capacity arena to fulfill an arena? Like you look back at the Mississauga Steelheads that just relocated to Brampton, their arena was beautiful. The only issue was they couldn't fill it with fans. Even when Mississauga was on playoff runs year after year, I mean, years they would go to like the Eastern Conference final. There was one year they went to the finals, and yet they couldn't fill the arena. So my speculation wonders, can Brampton actually hold this? Because, well, it's a reason why the Brampton Battalion left out of Brampton. Now you're bringing another OHL market into the same city that failed last time. It's going to be interesting. But that's another speculation where a lot of people say a team could potentially land. Another place people are speculating a team could land is in Toronto. I mean, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs, you have the Toronto Marlies, big franchises there. And then you have like teams in the I think it's the GTHL, the GTAHL, Greater Toronto Area Hockey League, or now you just have the PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League, that just started up. You have the OJHL, which you have teams like the Toronto Junior Canadians, the Toronto Patriots, the North York Rangers. So, do you add a team in Toronto? Question is, where are they going to play? I mean, they could play at the Coca-Cola Coliseum where the Marlies play, but they already have an AHL team there. They can't play at a Scotiabank Arena. The arena is too large, and plus you already have the Leafs and the Raptors that play there. Same reason why the Toronto Rock actually apparently left Toronto to go play in Hamilton, even though they're still named the Toronto Rock. Hamilton was a much better fit for them. So, what makes Toronto a good fit to hold an OHL franchise? Personally, I don't know if they could do it. It really all depends if you have the commitment for the city of Toronto, the arena capacity. Can you hold a fan base there with two other big known hockey franchises that play out of the same city? And not only that, Brampton is not that far. So, and plus you have other local cities that play not too far out of Toronto. So does it make sense to add a team in Toronto? In my opinion, no, it doesn't. I would rather add a team in a city like Vaughan or Newmarket than add a team in Toronto. You're going to have much more success for an OHL franchise in those smaller communities rather than in a city like Toronto. That's a huge market. The other town that could hold an OHL franchise, Cornwall, Cornwall, Ontario. This small community is right on the Canadian-US border, in Canada, and they're just south of Ottawa, southwest of Montreal, Cornwall, Ontario. Cornwall, Ontario is a very interesting option. I think it's the same reason why St. Thomas, Ontario should get a team out in Western Ontario, not too far from London. But could Cornwall hold a franchise? I think that goes with a yes. I think they could, considering that you have a small franchise like Owen Sound, Sarnia, those small communities can hold a franchise. If you add a team in Cornwall, you're going to knock Brantford right out of that division. And they would potentially do some, there would definitely be some division realignments if that was to happen. But I think if you were to add a team in Cornwall, you could have some success. But now you got to remember, you moved the Belleville Bulls out of Belleville, Ontario, which ended up going to Hamilton. So can you actually hold a team in Cornwall? Well, I mean, look at all the other markets that you have around Cornwall. You got Kingston, Ontario. You got Brockville. You got Belleville. You got Peterborough. You got the Kawartha Lakes. You got Ottawa. You got Trenton. You even have, I believe, Wellington is around here somewhere too. So Campbellford. So that's another one. Those aren't really big communities, but again, you got to look at all your options. Arena capacity, fan bases, how big is the community? Does it work for a fan base? Are they committed? Are they devoted to holding a franchise? These are all the things you got to look at. There's a lot of speculation around this one. Thunder Bay, Ontario. Oh, this is an interesting one because you're like on the very top point of Ontario. So you got the southern part of Ontario, and then you got the larger portion of Ontario. Can Thunder Bay hold this franchise? You're, I mean, you look at how far Sault Ste. Marie is away from Southern Ontario. You're even further away if you're in Thunder Bay. Not only are you more near the central division of Canada itself, because you're more Thunder Bay would be closer more to Winnipeg than it is to Sault Ste. Marie, since you got to go around Lake Superior. This is an interesting one though, because Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, and North Bay are doing the majority of the traveling in this road trip. If you were to go play in Thunder Bay, same thing. If you're playing in Thunder Bay, you got to travel all the way down to those other cities. So does a team actually work in Thunder Bay? I honestly believe Thunder Bay would be perfect for a community, arena capacity. They'd be devoted to holding an OHL franchise. I think the only issue here, I mean, you could probably work around division realignment, but the issue here, I think, is the traveling. How many teams are gonna take a bus to Thunder Bay, or are you gonna fly to these cities? I mean, you look at cities like Brampton, Oshawa, Peterborough, I think even Kingston, Sarnia, Owen Sound. None of these places have international airports. So you're going to have to really dig deep and think, is this going to be a successful franchise to hold in Ontario? The other option, and I think this would probably be the best and most wisest option, don't put a team in Ontario. Expand to another state in the US, because you got two in the state of Michigan, Saginaw and Flint. You got one in the state of Pennsylvania of Erie. I would say you would add one in the state of New York. New York, I mean, you got cities like Syracuse, Rochester. I wouldn't go to Buffalo just because you hold an NHL franchise there, and you're very close to the city of Niagara. But I would say if I was to recommend a city to go to somewhere in New York, if it's not Rochester, I would probably say Syracuse. I mean, I know Syracuse may have an AHL team, but unless there's another small community in the state of New York, I would highly recommend that they relocate to New York. If you go to the WHL, who's also part of the CHL, they just really relocated the Winnipeg Ice not this past season, but the season before. At the end of that season, they relocated them to this very small town or village in Washington to become the Wenatchee Wild. I was shocked when I heard this, especially a huge city like Winnipeg, who holds an NHL franchise. You also have the Manitoba Moose, who are their AHL team. And now you just relocated your one and only WHL team to a very small, unknown village, I think, to a lot of people in the state of Washington at West. So this is a very interesting option if you go to the state of New York. Where are you going to put them? I would recommend Syracuse, maybe Rochester, but you already have a team in roster for Rochester for the AHL. And then also there's Utica. They also used to be, Utica used to be the Vancouver Canucks AHL team. Not anymore. I don't believe so. That would be my suggestion if you go to New York, because I mean, you got a whole lot of other communities down in New York, but the further you go south, the more deeper you're getting into the state of New York, and you're kind of moving away more from Ontario. So that's another potential option. Going back to York Region in Ontario, I think the other option, because I actually used to live in this city for, well, 23 years, Markham, Ontario. This team holds an OJHL team, the Markham Royals. They play out of the Centennial Community Center in Markham, Ontario, actually in Unionville. Uh, the only problem is their facility isn't big enough. They're more of like a community rink, if anything. Like they got swim pools, they got two rinks. The seating capacity isn't as bad, but I don't think it would meet OHL policy capacity in order to relocate a team to Markham. And plus, they don't have an arena. There was actually talks about adding an NHL team in Markham. So they'd probably be like the Brooklyn of New York in a way, of Toronto. But they just couldn't pull it off. They were considering adding a new facility called the GTA Center. Who knows where, if maybe the Steelheads would have moved there in time if Markham was still under consideration. But if you're going to probably move anywhere, I would probably suggest Vaughan or Newmarket. Since Newmarket has OHL experience, and Vaughan, since you can kind of gather that like that capacity for Wonderland. You have Wonderland right around the corner, so maybe that's another option there. This one is actually very well under consideration. The owner of the Oshawa Generals is looking to relocate the Oshawa Generals to Pickering, Ontario. They are still in Durham region. You got Oshawa, Whitby, Ajax, and Pickering. Pickering is right next to Scarborough for any of you CEBL basketball fans out there. Pickering, it could work. The only thing is, can Pickering hold an arena? They're hold the capacity at an arena. From what I've been reviewing in the booth with Mike, he is the play-by-play announcer for the Barrie Colts. I highly recommend you go check out his videos and his content. He actually mentioned that I believe near the Pickering Casino Resort. I might have that location wrong, but the city of Pickering is looking to build a new facility there that could hold the capacity for an OHL franchise. Beautiful city. They also have an OJHL franchise, same league as the Markham Royals. They are the Pickering Panthers, and they play out of the city of Pickering. They are also a franchise that could potentially sell that market to this OHL team unless, the OHL relocate somewhere. But again, if you're going to relocate the Oshawa Generals, you're probably going to move them to Pickering. But are they going to be called the Pickering Generals? Or are you going to be called I honestly don't see it being the Pickering Generals. That just sounds too odd to me. I would say, you keep the Pickering Panthers name, you sell it from the OJHL to the OHL, or you just relocate your new franchise completely. You got to remember that the Whitby Fury of the same league of the OJHL, they relocated up to Haliburton to become the Haliburton Huskies. And just prior to that, the Newmarket Hurricanes, or the Newmarket Kings, a lot of you local friends in the Newmarket area may remember, they relocated to Milton, Ontario, and now they're the Milton Menace. I mean, if you were to add a team in Newmarket, it's potential, but you also got to realize do you have the facility to hold them? Your arch rivals of Aurora, Ontario, are right down the street, and they hold the Aurora Tigers of the same league of the OJHL. In the meantime, that is the biggest, most current news coming out of the OHL in terms of relocation next after Brampton, from Mississauga to Brampton, is the Oshawa Generals to Pickering, Ontario. But it could either be 2029, I believe it's 2039 though. That is the year that the Oshawa Generals are expected to maybe move to Pickering. Again, things can change over a whole decade. That is just the current news coming out of that. But let me know your thoughts. What city or town or village do you think that the OHL market could work in? Maybe there's a city that I didn't even mention. Maybe there's one I did mention that you would like me to discuss further. Drop your comments and thoughts down in the comments below. I'll be sure to get back to them as soon as possible. And if there's any other potential options, maybe you want to keep every single franchise going forward in Ontario, or maybe, add to the state of Michigan, add to the state of Pennsylvania, expand into the state of New York. What does the future of Owen Sound look like? I mean, I think the Owen Sound Attack have a great future in the city of Owen Sound. Very small community. Small communities work great for franchises like this. And apparently, the Sudbury Wolves are also supposed to be building a new arena soon. They're supposed to be undergoing a new arena for the future. So that goes back to my first video for the introduction video for the breakdown of these teams. If the Sudbury Wolves do decide to rebuild, in the next 2, 3, or 4 years, will the Sudbury Wolves team look dominant for a playoff contention team with a new arena being played in a new arena? So that is something to look forward to and keep our eyes on as well. But thank you so much for tuning into this video. Really appreciate it. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe down below for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next one.